I didn't move to Oak Ridge Estates for neighbors. I moved for quiet. For space. For the kind of sunrise that hit the pastures gold before the HOA patrol's golf carts could start humming. The property sat right next to the gated community, a long strip of land, 20 acres of pasture and oak trees that wrapped around the only paved road in or out of Oak Ridge. The HOA didn't own that road. The county didn't either. I did. Bought it fair and legal, right through a tax auction 3 months ago. I'm Jack Rayner, 53, retired Army engineer. I've seen bureaucracy at its worst overseas, paperwork thicker than armor and rules written by people who never got their hands dirty. So, when I retired, I told myself one thing: no more red tape, no more people pretending to be in charge. That was before I met Karen Alden, president of the Oak Ridge Estates HOA. Our first encounter wasn't a conversation, it was an ambush. It happened 2 weeks after I closed on the ranch. I was unloading fencing material when a white Lexus rolled up the gravel drive like it owned the place. Out stepped Karen, late 50s, manicured, sun hat big enough to eclipse a small town. She looked around like she was inspecting a crime scene. "Excuse me," she said, voice tight. "You can't keep livestock here. This is a residential zone." I rested my hands on the fence post. "I'm not in Oak Ridge. This is unincorporated county land." Her lips twitched. "All the properties along this road fall under our community covenant." "Not this one." She didn't like that answer. She glanced at the sign I just bolted to my gate: private ranch property, not HOA land. "That sign," she said, pointing, "is non-compliant with our aesthetic guidelines." I laughed, which didn't help. "Then it's perfect." Karen stiffened. "You'll find it easier to cooperate, Mr. Rayner. The HOA handles landscaping, road maintenance, community security." "Funny," I cut in. "Because I own the only road you're talking about." Her expression froze, the way people's faces do when they realize the ground they're standing on isn't theirs. Then she recovered, forced a brittle smile, and said, "We'll see about that." That was the first sign of trouble. By the next week, letters started showing up. HOA stamped envelopes. All addressed to resident, Oak Ridge Estates. Every one of them listed violations: unapproved fencing, unkempt grass, unauthorized livestock. They were bluffing, of course. I wasn't under their jurisdiction. But harassment has a way of crawling under your skin. The third letter came with a fine, $1,200. I called their office. A young-sounding man answered. "Oak Ridge Estates, this is Connor." "This is Jack Rayner," I said. "I'm calling about some bogus fines." He hesitated. "Oh, Mr. Rayner. The board asked me to inform you that all homeowners along." "I'm not a homeowner in Oak Ridge." A pause. Then a whisper. "Sir, between us, she's saying your driveway cuts through HOA land." That's because she doesn't know where the property line actually is. Karen wasn't just overstepping, she was planning something. That evening, I walked the property line with a flashlight and a survey map. My land wrapped around the gated entrance like a horseshoe, right up to the county road. Every car, golf cart, and Amazon truck going into Oak Ridge crossed my deeded ground. The road was asphalt, well maintained but aging. I'd planned to repave it eventually. Now, I saw it differently. It was leverage. The next morning, as I was repairing a water trough, a deputy's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Mayers stepped out, polite but weary. "Morning, Jack. Got a call from the HOA, something about trespassing livestock?" I snorted. "You're standing in my field, Tom. No trespassing here except maybe you." He chuckled. "Yeah, I figured. Karen's been calling every day. Claims your cows are a safety hazard to community property. Then she should stop wandering onto it." He rubbed his neck. "Just keep it civil, all right? She's got friends at the county office." "I've got paperwork," I said. "That's better than friends." A few days later, I caught Karen herself sneaking past my gate. She had 2 board members in tow, both armed with clipboards and a sense of authority that didn't belong to them. I leaned against my truck, watching. "Lost." She turned, startled but pretending not to be. "We're inspecting potential code violations." On my land. This road provides primary access to Oak Ridge, she said. Therefore, it's shared community infrastructure. I raised a brow. You might want to check the county plat before making statements like that. You're trespassing. Her smile faltered. You wouldn't call the police. I pulled out my phone and scrolled. You're right, I said. I'd call the county assessor's office. They love paperwork as much as I do. For a moment, I saw something flicker behind her eyes, fear, or maybe calculation. Then she turned on her heel and stormed back toward her car. The board members followed, muttering about liability. As the Lexus rolled away, I saw her looking in the rearview mirror. That was when I decided, if she wanted a war of paperwork, I'd fight it like an engineer, quietly, precisely, and entirely by the book. That night, I pulled the deed file and called my attorney, Evelyn Chen, a sharp, no-nonsense real estate lawyer who'd helped me close on the property. Evelyn, I've got an HOA problem, I said. She sighed. That didn't take long. They're fining me, claiming jurisdiction. I own the access road. Send me the parcel numbers, she said. If what you're saying checks out, we'll remind them who pays for asphalt. By the next morning, Evelyn had sent a formal notice to the HOA board. Any unauthorized use of or maintenance work on the Rayner Road constitutes trespassing and liability exposure. Karen responded within hours, her tone dripping with faux civility. Dear Mr. Rayner, she wrote, we appreciate your concerns. The HOA intends to maintain its established right-of-way for the benefit of our residents. Please refrain from obstructing traffic or altering shared infrastructure. I read it twice, smiled, and walked outside. Then I hammered a new sign into the ground beside the road. Private easement, permission required for access. Neighbors slowed their cars to read it. One even waved nervously. By dusk, Karen's Lexus was parked by my gate again. She didn't get out. She just sat there, engine idling, staring at that sign. Maybe she realized what it meant. Maybe not. But I knew one thing for certain. For the first time in her life, Karen Alden wasn't in control. And I had just started drawing the blueprints for her downfall. By the end of that week, Oak Ridge Estates was buzzing like a kicked hornet's nest. The HOA's email blasts came daily, thinly veiled warnings about outside property owners impeding community access. Every message had Karen's signature stamped at the bottom like a declaration of war. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The law would do my talking for me. But I knew Karen wouldn't stop at letters. She was the type who believed persistence could rewrite reality. That belief met its first test on a Tuesday morning. I was loading hay when a rumble of engines broke the quiet. 3 landscaping trucks rolled through the gate, bright green, the HOA logo plastered on the sides. They stopped right in the middle of my road. Workers jumped out, unspooling hoses, preparing to spray weed killer along the ditches. I walked over, calm but firm. You folks lost. One man, mid-20s, sweating under his cap, pointed toward the HOA sign at the gate. Maintenance order from Oak Ridge. They said it's their right-of-way. Not anymore, I said. That road's private property. My property. He hesitated, looking from me to his clipboard. Said you'd say that. Did she now? I asked. Well, she forgot to mention trespassing fines. He looked uneasy. We're just doing our job, sir. I nodded toward the gate. Then go do it somewhere legal. The man glanced at his co-workers, then back at me. He called Karen. I could hear her voice faintly through the phone, sharp, clipped, commanding. He hung up after 30 seconds, visibly relieved. She said to leave, he muttered. I smiled. Smart choice. Later that afternoon, my attorney called. She's bluffing hard, Evelyn said. The HOAs filed a petition with the county claiming implied easement through your land. But they didn't realize the old right-of-way expired when the county sold the parcel. So they've got nothing? Less than nothing, Evelyn replied. If she pushes it, she'll expose every illegal fine she's issued under false jurisdiction. You're sitting on leverage, Jack. Don't waste it. I don't intend to, I said. How public is this petition? Filed with the clerk's office. Anyone can see it. Perfect. The next morning, I stopped by the local diner, small town hub where gossip traveled faster than Wi-Fi. Sure enough, a few Oak Ridge residents were there, sitting around the counter whispering about some road dispute. I ordered coffee and sat nearby. One of them, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, turned toward me. "You're the guy with the ranch, right? The one Karen's been talking about?" "That depends on what she's saying." He sighed. "That you're trying to block the road. Says you're holding the community hostage." I took a sip of coffee. "Funny. I'm the only one maintaining that road. She's the one trespassing." Another woman leaned in. "You mean you own it?" "Deeded and recorded," I said. "Check the county maps." A quiet ripple of surprise spread through the group. "She's been using HOA funds to pay for landscaping along that road," the woman said. "If she doesn't actually control it, she's misusing community money," I finished. And just like that, the seeds were planted. That evening, I set up a small security camera facing the gate. Not because I expected trouble, but because I expected Karen. Sure enough, at 9:47 p.m., headlights crept up the road. "Alexis." She parked at the gate again, stepped out with a flashlight, and started snapping pictures of my signs. Then she crossed the line onto my property. I hit record. The next morning, I emailed the footage to Evelyn with a single note. "Trespass, time-stamped." Her reply came back within an hour. "Perfect. Let's make her regret discovering what property rights actually mean." By Thursday, Karen escalated again. This time, she called a community emergency meeting. I got an invitation, hand-delivered by a young HOA volunteer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "You're invited to address the board," he said awkwardly. I smiled. "Tell Karen I'll be there." The Oak Ridge Clubhouse was a monument to excess, gleaming floors, fake marble columns, and motivational quotes framed on the walls. The room was packed. Dozens of residents sat whispering as Karen stood at the front, gavel in hand like a judge in a courtroom she'd invented. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice sugar-sweet. "We're here to discuss ongoing road concerns caused by Mr. Jack Rayner, who recently purchased property adjacent to our community." Murmurs filled the room. I waited until she gestured toward me. "Mr. Rayner, would you like to explain why you've chosen to obstruct HOA business?" I stood slowly. "Sure. I'll keep it simple." I held up a folder and dropped a stack of papers onto the table in front of her. The top page bore the county seal. "That's my deed. Recorded, signed, notarized. The road belongs to me. You've been using it under an expired right-of-way since 2004. A man in the crowd spoke up. "Wait, so the HOA doesn't own the road?" Karen's smile faltered. "The association maintains it for community benefit." I shook my head. "Without permission. Which means every dollar spent on that road came from your dues and went to maintain my property." The room went dead quiet. Karen's face flushed. "You can't just take our road." "I didn't take anything. I bought it when the county auctioned it. Maybe you should have read your own covenants before pretending to own land you didn't." A low chuckle rippled through the crowd. Karen's hand trembled as she gripped her gavel. "This meeting is adjourned." I gathered my papers, met her eyes, and said quietly, "No, Karen. This meeting is just getting started." The next morning, Evelyn called again. "She's panicking," she said. HOA council reached out, apparently. Several residents are demanding a full financial audit. "Good," I said. "Let them dig." Evelyn paused. "You know, you could push this further. If they can't prove an easement, you could legally restrict access until they negotiate." I smiled. I was thinking the same thing. I drove down to the county office, filed the appropriate notice, and by noon, I had authorization to install a temporary access gate as long as emergency vehicles could still pass through. By sundown, the posts were in the ground and the keypad lock was mounted. Karen showed up 15 minutes later, red-faced, shouting from her car window. "You can't do this," she yelled. "You're cutting off our entire neighborhood." "No," I said calmly. "I'm requiring permission for use." "Big difference. Legal difference." Her voice broke into a shrill pitch. "You'll regret this, Rayner." I just smiled. That's what everyone says before they learn what due process actually means. She spun the car around and sped off. The dust settled behind her, but I could still hear her echoing anger. For the first time since I'd moved here, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not revenge, not yet. Just the quiet beginning of justice. Because in Oak Ridge Estates, Karen Alden had just discovered that control has boundaries. And I was the one holding the map. The next few days were calm, too calm. I knew Karen wasn't the kind of person to accept defeat, especially not from someone who'd refused to kneel to her HOA authority. When a control addict loses power, they don't stop, they scheme. That's what made the silence unsettling. The only sign of life from Oak Ridge Estates came in the form of subtle inconveniences. Someone accidentally clipped my mailbox. My delivery packages started disappearing. A county code inspector showed up claiming to follow up on an anonymous complaint about livestock sanitation. I offered him coffee and a copy of my compliance certificate. He left looking embarrassed. When you've spent half your life in logistics and combat zones, patterns stick out like bad camouflage. These coincidences had Karen's perfume all over them. I wasn't angry. I was calculating. That Thursday, I drove into town to grab some supplies and pick up copies of the HOA's financial records. Evelyn had helped me file a public disclosure request after the meeting. They'd been reluctant to release anything, always a sign something was worth seeing. The clerk handed me a folder thick enough to break a wrist. "You must be the ranch guy. Everyone's talking about that HOA drama." "Drama's one word for it," I said, flipping through the pages. Within minutes, I saw what I was looking for, a maintenance line item for Rayner Road, listed under community infrastructure. The expenses were staggering, over $80,000 in landscaping, seal coating, and consulting fees. Except none of that money had gone to any verified contractor. Someone was moving HOA funds into a private account under Oak Ridge Improvement Partners, LLC. A quick search revealed the registered agent, Karen Alden. I smiled, slow and grim. Gotcha. When I got home, I found a printed notice taped to my gate. Cease and desist order. Issued by Oak Ridge Estates HOA. Mr. Rayner is hereby ordered to remove all obstructions restricting community access. Failure to comply will result in legal action. It wasn't from a court. It wasn't even notarized. It was Karen's stationery. My camera caught her posting it that morning, wearing sunglasses like she was on a covert mission. I called Evelyn. "She's escalating," I said. "But I've got proof she's been funneling money through a shell company." Evelyn whistled softly. "That's felony territory, Jack. If the board finds out, she's finished." That's the plan. That evening, I decided to take a walk through Oak Ridge itself. Not out of spite, out of curiosity. The gate keypad recognized my code, and I strolled through the manicured streets like a ghost among manicured lawns. Every house looked identical. Beige, perfect, lifeless. Sprinklers whispered in perfect sync. A few residents saw me and quickly turned away. Others waved, hesitantly. An older couple near the cul-de-sac approached me. The man, gray-haired and weary, said quietly, "You're Rayner, right? The road guy?" "That's me." He glanced around before speaking. "Be careful. Karen's telling people you're dangerous, that you've got a vendetta against the HOA." I raised an eyebrow. "And do you believe her?" He gave a humorless laugh. "Son, I've lived here 10 years. Karen's had a vendetta against everyone. Last month, she fined us for having a garden hose visible from the street." His wife nodded. "Half of us are tired of her, but no one wants to confront her. She scares people. Makes threats about property values and liens." I smiled faintly. Then maybe it's time someone showed her what accountability looks like. The woman touched my arm. "If you've really got something on her, make it count." The next morning, I made it count. I emailed copies of the financial documents to 3 HOA board members, the ones who'd stayed quiet during the meeting. I included highlighted sections showing Karen's signature on the fraudulent expense reports. Within an hour, my phone buzzed. "Mr. Rayner," a voice said nervously. "This is Paul Hendricks, HOA treasurer. Is this real?" Real as rain, I said. Every transaction's time-stamped. You've been signing checks she forged in your name. He swore under his breath. She told us those were legitimate vendor payments. My God. She's been using your dues to line her pockets, I said. You want to fix this? Call an emergency board meeting. Without her. There was a long pause. Then, we'll do it tonight. At sunset, I sat on my porch with a thermos of coffee and watched the gate from a distance. Cars trickled into the clubhouse lot. No Lexus. Just nervous residents and a few board members hurrying inside. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. When they emerged, the treasurer called me. It's done, Paul said. We confronted her with your evidence. She lost it, screamed that we were conspiring with you. Then she stormed out. We voted unanimously to suspend her pending investigation. I exhaled, slow and satisfied. Good start. She's threatening to sue everyone, he added. But once we turn this over to the county auditor, she's finished. Then turn it over. And tell your residents the road issue will resolve soon, legally. Are you actually going to block it? I smiled faintly. Not block it. Redefine it. That night, Karen showed up again. No headlights this time. Just the sound of tires crunching gravel. I saw her silhouette in the camera walking up to the gate, clutching something in her hands. I stepped out with a flashlight. Evening, Karen. She froze. You think you've won, she hissed. You think you can humiliate me in front of my community? I didn't humiliate you, I said evenly. You did that yourself. She held up a folder, the same financial records I'd sent to the board. You leaked private documents. I could sue you. They're public filings, Karen. Remember the word transparency? It's something HOAs pretend to like. Her composure cracked. You're going to regret crossing me. I already did, I said. That's why I bought the road. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing hard. Then she hurled the folder onto the ground, spun around, and drove off, taillights vanishing into the dark. When I picked up the folder, a piece of paper slipped out, one of her letters, handwritten this time. They'll all turn on me. You've ruined everything. No signature. Just that line. For the first time, I felt a flicker of something close to pity. She'd built her identity on control, and now it was crumbling. But pity's not justice. Justice was still coming, neatly, legally, and inescapably. I turned back toward the ranch, the gate standing tall behind me, and whispered. Phase 2 starts tomorrow.